Hi, and welcome back to the next stop in your bright orange journey. In previous lessons, we walked you through the investment opportunities of owning Bitcoin in your portfolio and explained why Bitcoiners like to say it's still early. You've also learned about how Bitcoin serves as a store of value against an ever inflating fiat currency due to its decentralized fixed supply. We even debunked every rumor about energy, volatility, and possible government intervention in Bitcoin. So now let's discuss how Bitcoin will create a better future and what that means for you. In this lesson, we'll discuss the utility that money provides and how the nature of money affects the way that society behaves. What kind of incentives are needed to allow us to reach our most optimistic future? What do we mean when we say Bitcoin will create a better future? In order to answer that, we must first understand the pivotal role money and prices play in coordinating production across society. Individuals transact with money to buy goods and services. We earn money from our businesses and our jobs. Businesses must act with uncertainty to gather the required resources to offer their goods and services, meaning they take financial risks every single day so that they are able to sell that product or service for a profit. The one thing that both individuals and businesses should be able to rely on is the value and stability of their medium of exchange. The money they use to operate their business, hold in their treasury, or transact with should be reliable and not subject to manipulation. And yet, our money, the very tool we use to budget or measure profit, is being manipulated and debased. By using money with continual inflation, it encourages short term thinking and haste. This is because there is no risk free way to preserve our hard earned value into the future. If you keep cash on your books, it will be eroded away through inflation or taxation. This means you have to immediately put this money to work to try to offset the debasement of that same currency. We begin to shorten our time horizon in that way, thinking only about our next meal and affording our next rent payment, rather than thinking, planning, and building for the long term. We make riskier and riskier bets to try to keep pace with inflation, but also to try to make a quick profit. And this drives more money and debt through the financial services sector than otherwise would be the case. With cheap fiat debt that can be printed by a stroke of a key, governments are able to engage in war or sustain warfare for much longer than they otherwise could. It's easy to do that when money's easy. But try taxing the people for a 20-year war and see how long it lasts. A large taxpayer-funded war would either impoverish the nation or end within a matter of weeks. But cheap fiat debt essentially provides the government with command over more of society's resources than it otherwise would. This fiat monetary policy is essentially making your money and your wages worth less over time through the printing of money, which then gets passed off to workers through the secret tax of inflation. Over the long arch of human history, our technology is naturally deflationary, meaning it brings prices down. For example, it used to be that someone would have to spend all their time working to get food. Then we invented tools like a fishing rod and a bow and arrow, so you only had to work half your time to get the food. And then we invented tractors. Suddenly you could hire one person to use the tractor and work a farm that could feed 100 people. This deflationary influence of technology is not limited to farming. Construction methods, software, electronics, in all economies, we get better and more efficient over time, and that naturally pushes the price of goods down. But because we have modern central banking, where we constantly inflate the money supply, and that money increasingly flows into assets in search of yield and scarcity, we offset that natural deflationary pressure with an inflationary economic foundation. This unnatural way of managing monetary policy and fighting technological pressures causes volatile recessions and ultimately a lot of pain, especially for workers and savers. And it doesn't matter if you change the people in control. This is actually not a political problem. Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, it doesn't really matter because this is a structural problem at the root of society. Money is information, and our information system is distorted and broken. Instead of structuring a financial system around this idea of constant money supply growth, let's instead let technological deflation boost our purchasing power over time and reward savers rather than debtors. Deflation is not the boogeyman it's made out to be. And if you look back at the last 50 years of the 1800s, it was actually a deflationary environment What we essentially had was a technological revolution with the invention of things like internal combustion engine and widespread adoption of electricity. And that translated into lower prices of goods and services. And this period also saw a huge boom in productivity. Your money sitting at home during that time actually went up in purchasing power. What cost 10 cents suddenly cost 5. We can't even imagine a world like that today. But if the world were to transition and return to sound money, it would replace the need to trust third parties and political rulers with the ability to verify. The beauty of Bitcoin is that it replaces unelected members of the Federal Reserve and corruptible bureaucrats with thousands of people around the world who are running nodes to monitor and secure a monetary network. There's no single point of failure with Bitcoin. And as your money becomes a store of value again, regular goods would stop appreciating in price. In fact, they would get cheaper when compared to Bitcoin. And this is already happening. That is the benefit of having a strong base layer of money with a fixed supply that is incorruptible. Bitcoin can bring a time of abundance, freedom, and peace. External factors no longer would hold sway over your financial future and allow us all to pursue careers and projects that inspire us. Families would be rewarded for saving as opposed to being punished by inflation. Without the necessity to work 3 jobs so that you can afford your lifestyle, maybe you're able to focus on more creative long-term projects. Parents are able to be more present and take a larger role in their children's lives. This type of paradigm shift across the entire world would propel us into a golden age for innovation. And with Bitcoin, sound money at the base layer. That's to say, fix the money, fix the world. So how do we get to that bright orange future? It starts with continuing to educate yourself and sharing this with friends so they can benefit from it as well. Nobody who has taken the time to learn about Bitcoin has ever looked back. The trend has already begun as the world economy is overburdened with debt and beginning to see cracks in its foundation. You can see it as the Fed tries to raise rates and curb inflation. We've already seen banks fail shortly after the Fed began to raise rates. And the catch-22 is that governments of the world will have no choice but to either default on their promises or print trillions of dollars and debase the currency in order to satisfy their debt obligations. Even if there was a way out of this monetary crisis, our political system is incentivized not to fix the problem. Attempting to fix it would involve massive amounts of pain to the people who elected these politicians into office. And left with the choice, they all choose the path of least resistance, the path of the inflationary money printer. Here's a clip of exactly how politicians viewed their roles in the great financial crisis.
The president interrupted Hank and directed a question at Ben.
I asked, are we headed for a Great Depression? And Bernanke said, it looks that way. And you have to make up your mind, Do you care? And what I cared about was people that would be hurting. They were already starting to hurt. People were getting run out of their homes. Payrolls couldn't be met. And I just could envision what a Great Depression would mean. If it's bad now, imagine how bad it would really get.
You can already see how those in leadership positions are thinking when faced with this problem. They always print more and keep kicking the can down the road, which is how we got here in the first place. The investment thesis for bonds is falling apart before our very eyes, and real estate is in danger of being taxed even further while an entire generation is priced out of the housing market. I just named 2 markets worth hundreds of trillions of dollars. So imagine if even a small fraction of that wealth was stored in Bitcoin. Slowly and then suddenly, the world is waking up and looking for a life raft. Luckily for us, the beautiful decentralized protocol was born during the great financial crisis and gives us all hope for our future and our children's futures. Because we are so early in the adoption cycle of this transformative technology, there is enormous upside potential for investors. And that is why many people who fall down the Bitcoin rabbit hole decide to hold a portion of their net worth in it. We call these people Bitcoiners. We believe that Bitcoin, if used as a base layer for sound money in society, would transform the world.